Did Donald Trump just win the election with one political photo op that actually tells the entire story of this election? Did it just seal the victory? Do you want fries with that? Are we getting a happy meal election 2 weeks from tomorrow? We're going to break down the McDonald's visit heard around the world. Plus, we've got some deeper analysis on how this election is going, a deep dive into the polls, that is, national polls, as well as one critically important state, the state I'm visiting as we speak. Also, Mike Johnson has to brave a confrontation with Jake Tapper, where they confront everything about a potential Donald Trump presidency, and it involves Arnold Palmer's sand wedge. No, really more of a long putter. Actually, it's a long drive. It's a big mama of a drive. It's a big Bertha. It's a, you know what I'm saying. We'll get to all those euphemisms coming up right now. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. You can supersize my victory this election day because we just saw something incredible occur in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Donald Trump, what started out as just a plain old troll of Kamala Harris and her ridiculous claim that she worked at a McDonald's during the summer one year in college, it turned into an iconic moment in American political history. It could very well be the moment that turned the 2024 election. And to set the stage here, remember, Kamala Harris made this claim. It came up during one of those softball interviews on Drew Barrymore's show. And Drew Barrymore said, oh, or no, actually, it was like the little dude that's on the show with Drew Barrymore who said, somebody told me that you worked at McDonald's. And of course, by the way, that means someone from your campaign told me to ask you about working at McDonald's. So now please give your scripted answer. And she claimed that she worked at a McDonald's during the summer when she was in college. Now, she went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., so it should be pretty easy for her to give specifics on this. And she's never given specifics. Which McDonald's? What year? Or was it back in Montreal where they served gravy on the fries? Because, you know, it's a poutine situation. Never answered a damn thing about it. Donald Trump questioned it. The Washington Free Beacon did some of their crack investigative journalism, and they found out from the McDonald's Corporation that there is no record of any kind at any time of anyone named Kamala Harris working for their company, whether from a corporate-owned McDonald's or from one of the franchises. Well, that's curious, isn't it? Stephanie Ruhle, who scored the first one-on-one interview with Kamala Harris after she'd become the nominee for the Democrats, asked her specifically about it, but she asked it as a joke. Remember, she said, did you ever serve 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, peas, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun? And Kamala Harris said yes. And Stephanie Ruhle said, well, that's all I need to know. No follow-ups, no challenges. They made it into a joke. Well, Donald Trump decided to troll a little bit, and he volunteered to work at a McDonald's yesterday in the suburbs of Philadelphia in Bucks County. And as I said, what started out as a troll ended up quite possibly as the turning point of this election. Take a look at what the scene looked like as Donald Trump showed up in his signature dark blue suit, red tie.
Hello, everybody. Sir? My first day at McDonald's. I'm looking for a job.
Hello, President Trump. I'm Derek Jackman Tony. I'm the owner.
Oh, that's a good owner. Must be a wealthy guy,
huh? Hello, everybody. It's my first day of work. I'm here to get a job at McDonald's. And good for this owner, by the way, braving all of the hellfire that's going to come raining down upon him, as you know, because this is what the left does in this country. Donald Trump explained exactly what he was looking for at this McDonald's.
If you don't mind, I want to work at the French fry counter.
Absolutely.
Okay, how much are you paying me?
How much are you paying?
Hello, everybody.
Inda's here. This is Inda. She has an apron for you.
Good job. First day.
I think I should take off my jacket.
So here he gets the iconic apron with the. I'm sorry, everything about this makes me smile and laugh because it's just brilliant. So then he has to take off his jacket, and he kept his perfectly pressed, bleached white dress shirt, probably Brooks Brothers, and he kept the red tie on, and then he put on the apron, and the next thing you know, he's learning to be a fry cook.
Do you have that video, Larry?
Oh, do we not have this one? Oh, thank you, Kevin. Sorry. Here we go. I love this kid. He just points out, do that, and he walks away. This is great. There he is, shaking the excess oil off. How many times have we seen this happen as we go to McDonald's? I love this. Look at the guy. He's training him, but he doesn't. He's not being an idiot about it. He just, all right, this is my job. This is how I train you, so I'm going to train you. Shakes off the excess oil. He moves down the lane. He goes to dump it in the little vat that's full of salt. All right. Next step on the fries. Let's see what that looked like. By the way, Trump gave running commentary while he was doing this too. Nice and neat. Add the salt. Fill it up. Never touches the human hands. And he filled in the little red iconic little cardboard box there that gets the French fries in it. And then so he learned that. He learned French fries in about 15 minutes and he was done. And then he turned to the cameras, by the way, and he said, I've now worked longer than Kamala Harris ever did at a McDonald's. I know that's a bad Trump impersonation. I'm sorry. We all have our strengths. That's not one of mine. Then they moved him over to the drive-in window. And of course, everybody who was in the drive-in trying to order their Big Macs or whatever, they had all been screened by the Secret Service. This was, we're going to get to the criticisms of this in a moment, but I was like, this was all planned and orchestrated. Well, of course it is. For God's sake, the guy suffered 2 assassination attempts. They're not going to let some Joe from Philly drive through the drive-through to go pick up a fillet of fish and then try to off the guy who's, running for president. Of course, the Secret Service screened everybody, but still, I want you to watch Trump interact with everybody at the drive-through window, and you tell me if Kamala Harris could even come a mile within this guy's retail politics and his ability to talk to people.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so
You
much
are
for
not
everything you're
ordinary. I
doing.
can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we watch? I'm sorry. This is so wholesome and so heartwarming. And how people look at this and get like in a blind rage and fury, it speaks so much of who they are versus who Donald Trump is. We need to break this down together. Here, this man of Indian descent shows up. And I know it's a little off mic, but I want to make sure you heard it. And I'll just tell you what happens here in this exchange so you'll watch it again. He says, thanks, you made it so ordinary people like us can meet you. And then Trump immediately cuts him off and says, you're not ordinary. You're not ordinary. And then at the end, you'll see his wife, also of Indian descent, says, thank you for taking a bullet for us. Because that's how people see him. That's how people see what he's endured, that he has taken a bullet for us. And not just the actual bullet, but all the other crap that he has to put up with his enemies, with our enemies. They are enemies, sadly, because they're doing whatever they can to keep a free and fair election process from occurring here. They're interfering with this election through the indictments, through the lawfare, and through the censorship, through stifling voices, from keeping a actual exchange of ideas in this country. That's all election interference. And I'll stop. Let's watch this.
Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not
I
ordinary.
mean, thank you so
You
much
are
for
not
everything
ordinary.
you're
I
doing.
can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
I love Trump. Take a bullet. Yeah, when you think about it, I guess that's right. That is what I did. Yeah, that's right. He also said we were praying for you. You hear that a lot at Trump rallies and at these events that Trump attends. All right. And then, again, working the drive-through window. Just imagine driving through it at McDonald's and having Donald Trump leaning out the window in his apron and red tie, handing you your bag of McNuggets. This is a woman who is a Brazilian immigrant who drove up to the window to get her McDonald's. Let's take a look.
A lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh my God! Oh
Look
my
at the
God!
fake- Look at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
Look at, I don't know if you caught that. Because Trump just caught, all the cameras set up on the other side of the parking lot where he's heading it out. And he says to the woman, look at all the fake news over there. Did you catch that? Here, watch.
Everybody,
Oh my God! Oh
look
my
at the
God!
look at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
You can fake this,
And
right?
you know this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes.
please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
We'll keep it
Please,
good.
please, please.
We're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Mr.
Compliments
President.
of Trump.
Yes.
Have a good time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you over there.
Oh my God.
Have a good time.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see
You
you.
too.
Bye,
Nice to
darling.
see you.
Have a good time. Thank you.
What a beautiful family. And if you caught that, she said, please don't let America become like my native Brazil. And he said, no, we're going to make it better than ever. All right, a little bit more of Trump working the window here, guys.
Okay, these are nice people we're meeting.
So you hear
Okay. Hey, look at this guy. I'm not going to mess with him. Huh? How you doing, sir? Fantastic. Hello. My new baby boy. How are you? Your new baby. How are you? Doing great. How are you? So this is compliments of me, okay? All right. You go have a good time. Don't eat too much, right? Have a great day. Thank you, man. You take care. Thank you, honey. Have a good time. Thank you.
Again, I ask, could Kamala or Tim Walz ever come close to this? Now, like I said, this is listen, retail politics. And it's obviously set up as a photo op. It's set up as a troll. But what ended up happening was this iconic moment in American political history where, with all of the crap they've thrown at this man, like I said, the lawfare and the criminal indictments and the personal attacks and just everything, the FBI raids and the calling him Hitler and the attacks on his family, and somehow, because knowing that he endures all of this and knowing that we, the American people, hear all of these attacks on him, and it's become this narrative in this country that the man is evil incarnate, that he's a fascist, that he's just horrible, right? And then you go to social media or you turn on the television, you see these images, and it's like, in this very weird way, because of all the negativity they've thrown at him, because of all of the crap that he's had to endure, when he has a moment like this, in a weird way, they are making him the Norman Rockwell iconic personification of what you want your president to be. They're turning him into Reagan, is what they're doing, because he doesn't come across in any way as this evil monster that they continue to say he is. In fact, quite the opposite when he interacts with people. And you see this image of Trump at this McDonald's dressed up to sell French fries. And it's like, yeah, that's what I want my president to be able to do. I know he's Donald Trump. I know he's doing this for votes. I know it's political. That doesn't matter. I want that. And it comes across as genuine. It doesn't come across as phony. And you know how else I know this was an absolute grand slam, 10 out of 10, perfect political operation, not just in effectively trolling Kamala Harris and pointing out how disingenuous and what a liar she is, because they still have not said, it's so simple. All they have to do is say, yeah, it was this McDonald's. And here's a picture of me working there. Or here's, I still have a paycheck stub or a W-2 or something. I don't know. I can tell you that I've worked a lot of. When I was 15 years old, I worked at a Little Caesars Pizza. It was in Costa Mesa, California. It was on 17th and Newport Avenue. I worked for, and I guarantee you that Little Caesars can find that information if necessary. Go ahead and look it up. I was great at it, by the way. I worked at Disneyland from the age of 17 through 19. I worked in the parades. I danced down Main Street, USA. That's right, I was in the parade. And Disney can find that. And I can tell you exactly what parades I did. I can tell you people I worked with. How is it that Kamala Harris has not been able to do that? So not only was it a perfect troll of her, pointing out how fake and what a fraud she is and what a liar she is, but it created these iconic images that just make people feel good about him, about something iconic and American as a McDonald's, and about this election. And by the way, this was in the suburbs of Philadelphia in Bucks County, one of the most important swing counties in the country. All of those reasons tell you that this was a grand slam, home run, Hail Mary touchdown, 10 out of 10. But you know what really tells me that this worked? You know what really tells me how effective this was? The way the left reacted. Take a look, as we just saw those images, as we got our reaction and how it made us feel. And make no mistake, politics is about feelings. Watch how MSNBC felt about the same images and about the same political appearance.
I mean, if you're on his campaign, and I know you are certainly not, I'm not making any implication of that, but what is the logic behind this, going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
By the way, before we hear her guest give the answer, did you notice the snide looking down her nose and her elitist snobby? Oh, I know he loves the food at McDonald's. Me, I wouldn't get caught dead there. It's in McDonald's. But, right? Do you catch the tone and the entire elitist attitude from this, Manhattan news anchor on a weekend at MSNBC who just, sure, he and his people might eat at McDonald's, but what's this really all about? Now, listen to the reaction from the guest, the Democrat analyst who's supposed to actually give some sort of political perspective on this.
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well, and he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during this campaign. So this is just another one of those stunts that he will continue on through the campaign. And I think that we need to really focus on making sure that he is not elected, of course, because he is a threat to our democracy, but also the Harris loss agenda is about the economy, reducing the cost of living.
Yeah, sure it is. I'm going to let you finish, but do you get the irony, the discordant media experience that we're all sharing here as we see Donald Trump in an apron learning how to make French fries at a McDonald's, and this woman in her shrill voice saying he's a threat to democracy. Does he look like a threat to democracy? He may be a threat to cholesterol right now. He may be a threat to your waistline because the French fries he's making are so crispy on the outside and fluffy and warm on the inside that you won't be able to stop with just one. That may be the threat. But the threat to democracy? I don't think so. But this is what MSNBC, this is the sewer that they're dwelling in right now. This tells you how effective this was, that this is how angry they are. Sorry, I'm going to let you finish with Kamala's great agenda to bring down the cost of living, which again, as she lays it out there, just ask yourself, why isn't she doing it now if she can?
Reducing the cost of prescription drugs, reducing the cost of housing, and making life better for everyone. And that's what we have to focus on and make sure we get every voter to the polls and make sure that the voters vote for the future, not taking the country backwards, as you see what Donald Trump continues to try to do. So I'm urging and encouraging everyone to get to the polls and vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Well, that's a fine political analysis right there. You get your money's worth there on MSNBC, don't you? Let me just say that if I had asked you a year ago, 5 years ago, can you imagine Donald Trump going to work for a day at a McDonald's? Would you even hesitate? Of course, you'd say, yeah, I can see that. Of course, he would do that. Even today now, can you imagine Kamala Harris doing this? Can you imagine Kamala Harris doing what Trump did at a McDonald's? I got a better question for you. Can you imagine Kamala Harris? And again, let me just be clear. Anybody can do anything, sure. But in a natural way, in an authentic way, in a way that is appealing and actually warm, the way that Trump did this. Can you see Kamala Harris doing that? Even better. Can you see Kamala Harris going to a McDonald's and eating a burger? More examples of how we know this was a complete nightmare for the left. Here's how CBS News this morning covered this story.
Thank you.
It capped off a day of campaign stops.
And I've always wanted to work at McDonald's.
That included a visit to a McDonald's, closed just for him, where he tried scoring political points after claiming without any evidence that Vice President Harris didn't want to work at the fast food chain while in college.
She never worked at McDonald's.
She says she did.
I'm sorry, what? Ed O'Keefe, CBS News, this is what amounts to a fact check now. He claimed without evidence that she never worked there, but she claims she did. I'm sorry. Where's the without evidence part? She claims she did work there, also without any evidence. No. It's just Trump's claim that she never worked at a McDonald's that gets the without evidence tag. But Kamala Harris assuring everyone that she did, that's good enough for us. Hey, babe, if you say you worked there, absolutely you worked there. Good for you. That's CBS News. But I have to tell you, there were some eagle-eyed participants of this event on social media that really did nail Donald Trump as the fraud that he is. Take a look at this. I don't know if you know this dude, Ron Filipkowski. He's a online influencer from the left and an odious individual. He figured it out. He caught us. This is the October surprise, man. This is going to doom Donald Trump. Look at that. The place wasn't even open. It was staged and fake. He didn't work for real at a McDonald's. It was a staged fraud, just like every other event. You see, this was the letter that was posted on the window of the McDonald's yesterday. We plan to be closed on Sunday, October 20th until 4 p.m. to accommodate a visit at the request of former President Trump and his campaign. And then they go through the whole thing about how they're honored to share the significance about 1 in 8 Americans experienced a job at McDonald's, and they'd love for the Harris campaign to come by too. And of course, they have to bend over backwards and make all these apologies of why they're closing for Trump. But the key here is that Ron figured out that he didn't actually legitimately work at a McDonald's, guys. We are so screwed. He caught us. What a moron. What a complete and total nincompoop. Who thought that he really took a job at McDonald's? Nobody really thought that he took a job at McDonald's except for this moron. Are you serious? This is your big gotcha? Hey, guys, he didn't really work there. You know, this was just staged for the cameras. Of course it was. I love it when they try to point out something like this, like their gotcha moment, and all they actually reveal is how stupid they are. I think we let J.D. Vance sum it up the best. He, of course, had to be called into Fox News this time to break down the outrage over Donald Trump going to work for a McDonald's.
And the fact that these people are accusing him of a stage managed thing, of course, the president has to have security because there have been 2 attempts on his life in the last 8 weeks. He can't just walk into a McDonald's and sign a W-9 and actually go on the payroll. That's just not how this works, especially given the security threats on his life. But look, he was interacting with people. He was talking to the employees. He was giving people food. And he was just being, I think, what he does best, which is just being among the people, talking to them about what they care about. He showed, I think, genuine interest in the employees and their lives and where they came from and what they were actually doing in their job. And that's something you can't stage and you can't fake. That is just the genuine person that Donald Trump is. And it's why I think a lot of working people, even though, of course, he's a successful real estate billionaire, have this emotional connection to Donald Trump. You can't make up that kind of connection. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris has tried and failed. And I think it's why her campaign is flailing a little bit right now, is because she goes into Sheets and does 4 takes of her buying Doritos. Donald Trump just goes into McDonald's and he is who he is, and people love him.
That's absolutely right. And by the way, just in terms of pure politics here, because, these candidates, they're going to be all over Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, maybe Arizona, although that's starting to look a little out of reach, and Michigan, where I am right now, meeting battleground state voters and seeing what's happening on the ground in Michigan. That's where they're going to be. And it's events like this that are going to make the difference to convince those voters who are still on the fence or who haven't quite made their decision, or even more importantly, to get out those people to make sure that they show up to vote, the people who have already committed to vote for you. You saw what Donald Trump did. And I believe it was pretty damn effective, not just to motivate the people who are already on board with him, because it just makes pro-Trump voters feel good about him as a candidate and him as a person. But I think that actually appeals to the people who may have still been on the fence, who haven't decided one way or the other. Meanwhile, it's instructive to see what Kamala Harris did at the same time. She was in Michigan, but not really in Michigan. She was exclusively in Detroit and did a rally with Lizzo, who put out a video showing her getting onto a private jet, claiming that by showing up in Detroit on her private jet, she was saving democracy. And when Lizzo got to introduce Kamala Harris, she got to the microphone and extolled the virtue of Kamala Harris's plan to make America just like Detroit. I'm not kidding. That's the message to voters. Let me tell you something. As someone who was born in Detroit, who knows Michigan pretty well, people in Detroit don't want Detroit to be like Detroit. To say that the rest of make America Detroit again, I don't think is the takeaway message that the Kamala Harris campaign was really hoping to convey to the rest of the country. But that's what they got in their swing state visit. And that imagery that you just saw at McDonald's, that's what the Trump campaign got. Pick your fighter. Me, when it comes to a victory in 2 weeks, I want mine supersized. Hey, there is a lot at stake in this upcoming election. That's why you're here. That's why you're tuning in every day. Regardless of who's sitting in the White House, though, you know that in many respects, the fuse of the economy has already been lit. 4 years of a conservative presidency, not going to be enough, right, to turn the tide on a $35 trillion national debt. And if the left wins, well, forget about it. It's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire, right? You don't have much control over the election's outcome, but you can diversify your savings right now by investing in gold from Birch Gold. For millennia, gold has stood firm in the face of greedy governments, economic upheavals, and global strife, and it can help protect you right now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In the past 4 years, the buying power of the U.S. dollar has been declining, while at the same time, the price of gold has increased by 40%. Is that a coincidence? You know it's not. Text Larry to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold and trust Birch Gold, as I do, to protect your savings. Text Larry to 989898. Do it today. All right, we move on from the photo op political stunts that really do make a huge difference in a campaign to the actual raw data that we're getting. Now, if you're like me and you've been following politics for decades, you've probably grown accustomed to a certain trend that happens in the polls right around now. In the final couple of weeks of a campaign, you'll hear it from the experts on cable news and political shows on the networks. They'll say the polls are tightening. The polls are tightening. What does that mean? The polls are tightening. For decades, I've been watching this happen, where for months and months and months during an election, they'll show Democrats up by 5, up by 6, up by 10. And then when you get into the final weeks of the campaign, the polls tighten, which means Republicans suddenly start showing up and looking better on the polls. Now, how is that possible? Is it because that Republicans just don't say they're going to vote for the Republican? Does it mean that voters lie and say they're going to vote for the Democrat and then they really tell the truth in the final weeks of the campaign? Is it because people suddenly change their mind and they say, nope, I told you I was going to vote for a Democrat, but now I'm going to vote for a Republican? Is it because the pollsters all of a sudden start calling different people and they suddenly stumble upon people who were always going to vote for Republicans? We just never talked to them until now. Or is it because those undecideds all suddenly at the last minute decide to go Republican? Does any of that make sense? No, none of it makes sense. Well, if you're like me, as I said, and you've been paying attention and you've been consuming talk radio and political analysis for the last several decades, well, you will remember Rush Limbaugh telling you exactly what happens in the final weeks of a campaign. What happens is these pollsters all start changing their samples, changing their turnout models, and changing the actual demographics of the way they weight these polls so that it's not so heavily favored for Democrats anymore. The conversations are the same, the phone calls are the same, the responses are the same, but now they re-weight the polls to show Republicans in a more favorable light. Why? Well, because they're trying to hedge their bets. They want to make sure that they can say after the election, well, we saw trends going in the Republicans' direction. You see, up until now, most of the polls are designed to drive a media narrative, to make Democrats feel good, and to try to make it seem inevitable that the Democrats are going to win. Otherwise, how else do you explain? How else do you explain decades of the same thing happening over and over again? Oh, the polls are tightening. The polls are tightening. Suddenly, Republicans are looking pretty good. 8 years ago, at this time, Hillary Clinton was leading in the national poll by like 3-4 points. And in the battleground states, in the Electoral College, she was up by like 4 or 5 points in all of the states. And then suddenly, Trump comes out of nowhere and wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And if you look, the final days right before Election Day, suddenly Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania suddenly were within 1 or 2 points. Clinton and Trump were. And then he ended up winning. All right, that entire intro brings us to the latest poll numbers. Let's start with the national poll. And I know we don't pay a lot of attention to the national polls because that's not how we elect presidents in America. We elect presidents based on a state-by-state poll. But when the national polls favor a Republican or look this close for a Democrat, that spells doom for Democrats. Remember, only twice since 1988 has a Republican won the presidency and won the popular vote. That would be George Herbert Walker Bush in 88 and George W. Bush in 2004. So if a Republican is doing well in the national poll, that's a big story for Democrats. A big bad story. So here's the latest Real Clear Politics average, and you can see Kamala Harris right now is sitting at 49.2%. Trump is at 48.3%, within 1 percentage point on the Real Clear Politics average. That's terrible news for Kamala Harris. Also terrible news. Look at this red line here on this graph. You see how it's going up in the last few weeks of the beginning of October? That's the trend for Trump. Notice how Kamala Harris is almost, flatline. Hasn't changed, about the same. But you see, what did I tell you? All the breaking right now, the people that are breaking in the final weeks, they're all breaking for Trump. Let's look at this other breakdown here. This is from Real Clear Politics. Trend lines are important. That average number that I just showed you is an average of all of these polls you're looking at. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 polls that they averaged out to give you that number, which is Kamala Harris at 0.9% of a lead in the average. But see, the most important part of this, the 5 most recent polls are at the top of this graph here, the top of this spreadsheet. Look at 4 of the 5 are all trending in Trump's favor. In fact, that bottom one, the one in the middle here that shows Trump +2, that's a Fox News poll from October 11th, right? So what? That's only 10 days ago. If you look at the polls from October 11th through today, 4 of the last 5 are all trending for Trump. Fox News +2, Rasmussen +2, Emerson shows Harris +1, then Tip, Trump +2, Atlas Intel, Trump +3. That is an unbelievably strong trend line in the last 2 weeks, all trending for Donald Trump. But it gets even more important because of those top 5 polls that I just showed you, take a look at this graph from Real Clear Politics. Now, what this does is it grades these pollsters based on their accuracy. All right. And this averages the 2016 presidential election and the 2020 presidential election, one in which Trump won, one in which Biden won. And Reuters, Rasmussen, Tip, Fox, and NBC News were rated the top 5 polls in error rate. See how this column says average error? And only in Rasmussen's and Tip did the errors favor Republicans. All the other ones, if they had an error, favored Democrats. So of the top 5, Tom Bevan at Real Clear Politics broke this out. The top 5 most accurate national pollsters from 2016 and 2020. This is how they currently see the race. Reuters still sees Harris +3, but we're waiting for a Reuters poll coming out today or tomorrow. They're a little late with their latest poll. Rasmussen, Tip, Fox News, and NBC. Those are the other 4 of the top 5 accurate pollsters. And 3 of those 4 show Trump in the lead. NBC News shows as a tie. Are you tracking with me here? Not only is this now within 1 percentage point in terms of the national popular vote, but also 4 of the last 5 national popular vote polls show Trump in the lead. And of those, 3 of them are the most accurate polls from the last 2 election cycles. So we're pretty confident that these numbers are coming in accurately. That's how your national numbers look right now. But of course, we want to talk about the states. And right now, since I'm in Michigan for the next 2 weeks at Hillsdale College, as you can see, Steve Karnecki on Meet the Press did a breakdown on how Michigan is looking right now, because both Trump and Harris had their campaigns in Michigan over the last 48 hours, and they're going to be spending a lot more time here in the next 2 weeks. So what is Michigan looking like? Watch Steve break it down.
And look, this is our running average of the polling averages in the battleground states. They're all close, but what's the closest right now? Look at that. Michigan, the average there. Harris by 1/10 of 1 point. Really doesn't get closer than that. So let's dive into Michigan, what we're going to be looking at in the home stretch and on election night. And the key thing with Michigan, of course, go back to the last election. You just heard from Barack Obama there. Before Donald Trump came on the scene, Barack Obama and the Democrats won Michigan handily. Trump, of course, flipped it barely in 2016, and then it moved a little bit back to the Democrats in 2020. But the key is between 2012 and 2020, the Trump era, the state as a whole got a lot less Democratic. So keeping that in mind, we've split it into 3 categories here. Take a look. One way to think about it. One is, despite the state getting less Democratic, there are 9 counties that got more Democratic in the Trump era. Look at this. From 2012, Barack Obama won this collection of counties by 6. By 2020, it was a 14-point Biden blowout. There's only 9 of them, but they are 1/3 of the state. Each one of these has a higher share of white voters with college degrees than the statewide average. We talk about that a lot as the core Democratic base these days. You see it in these counties you got highlighted here. Next year, these are places where Trump made gains between 2012 2016 and where he held those gains in 2020. And you do see geographically, it's a fair amount of the state, but population wise, this is only 15% of the state. Some of the movement in some of these counties isn't that significant, but in others, talk about like Genesee County, where Flint is, Democrats were winning by 30 when Obama was the candidate. Now the Democratic margin down to like 10. Can Trump squeeze more out of this population wise, relatively small share of the state? And then this is half the state. In terms of where the vote is, these are places where Trump made gains, sometimes big gains in 16, then lost ground in 2020. This, I think, is where the state's going to be won or lost. Look at like Saginaw County here, where the city of Saginaw is. This is sort of a core, swing county. We're going to talk a lot about that on election night. You've got just outside Detroit, Macomb County, the old blue collar, big suburbs of Detroit. Obama won them. Trump won them by double digits in 2016, then gave back ground in 2020. That's a key one. And then the city of Detroit itself in Wayne County, the biggest in the state. Within Wayne County, we're going to be looking at, the city of Detroit and the city of Dearborn. In Detroit, Democrats worried about black voter support, black male voter support for Biden. Going to see Detroit will be a measure of that. In Dearborn, a large Muslim population. We're going to be looking on election night. Is that Israel-Palestine situation affecting the vote there, Kristen?
All right. So all of that broken down, and it's a smart way to break down the state, and Michigan is going to loom large. Let me just be clear, because I have roots in Michigan. I know people in Michigan. They've been following Michigan. It shouldn't be close. They have a Democrat machine in this state. They've got abortion issues on the state ballot all the time. Gretchen Whitmer and the Secretary of State have engineered drop boxes and all of these election protocols and all these things that are absolutely a nightmare for people concerned about election integrity. They have been able to drive the narrative the Democrats have in this state in every election cycle. There's no reason why it should be this close. Michigan should be off the map right now for Donald Trump. And yet it is in a whisker difference right now between the two of them. And having just landed in Detroit and driven from Detroit to where Hillsdale College is, which is about 90 miles southwest of Detroit. I can tell you personally, you land in Detroit, you expect to see Kamala Harris, dear leader posters everywhere, like the Obama Hope thing, and it's like plastered everywhere. Barely anything. I'll be honest. I was in Detroit, Romulus, Wayne County, what Steve Kornacki was just pointing at, and driving out of the state to Ann Arbor, which is very liberal because it's a college town. You don't see a lot of Harris signs. I'm sure they're all voting for Kamala Harris, but you don't see a lot of presence there. The second you get about 15 to 20 miles outside of Detroit, where we were driving on the roads heading out to where Hillsdale College is, nothing but Trump. Nothing but Trump. Huge. In fact, about 20 miles outside of Hillsdale, there was a pop-up store. You know how before July 4th, they have fireworks stands, for the weeks leading up to July 4th, where you can buy your fireworks, if it's legal in the state that you live in. There was a pop-up stand, a store selling Trump shirts, selling Trump flags, selling MAGA hats, selling Trump paraphernalia on a street corner in the town. That's the energy right now as soon as you get out of Detroit. There's no reason that it should be this way, except for the fact that there is momentum right now for Donald Trump. And I want to leave you with one last thing. Whether it's Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, understand, to win the Electoral College and be the next president, Donald Trump only has to win one of them. Kamala Harris has to do a clean sweep. If she loses all three, if she loses any one of them, it's over for her. I don't know about you, but I have a great disdain for the media. Perhaps you've picked that up from me in my analysis on a daily basis. I don't like the way the mainstream legacy corporate-owned media operates. I think that they're in the tank for one political ideology in this country, and they show it. It's basically propaganda, what they do. And even worse, they lie to you. They pretend like they don't have a dog in the fight. They pretend like they don't have any bias. They pretend like they're completely impartial. Now, if you're like me and that drives you up the wall, then you probably have a special little personal disdain for one Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper is the worst offender of this entire thing. He pretends like he doesn't have a political position or a political ideology. He pretends like he's above it all, that he has this pristine journalistic integrity, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And that's why I paid close attention to his engagement, shall we say, with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson this weekend on his show, State of the Union. Let's just start with how the exchange began between the two of them.
That's what he's talking about, using the U.S. military against not marauding gangs of Venezuelan.
Wait a minute.
Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul. So let me just say, if a Democratic presidential candidate said that you and your wife were evil and that the military should be used against you, I would say that's disgusting.
Well, thank you. And some have said that about us because they don't like my politics. I did not hear President Trump in that clip say he's going to sic the military on Adam Schiff. That's not what he's saying. You got two different clips in two different contexts. What President Trump is talking about is that they have been attacking and maligning him from the day he came down that golden escalator. Everybody knows that's true. In 2015, 2016, that's when this began. He's been the most attacked, maligned political figure in U.S. history. They've tried to kill him twice in the last few months. This is real, and he feels that acutely. And Jake, you would too, if you were under attack like he is all the time, every day. Iran, who has assassination attempts out against him.
But that's not
crazy, dangerous people
Adam
in the
Schiff
country who
and Nancy Pelosi
get on
are not
rooftops
trying
and
to
take shots.
assassinate Donald Trump.
All right, so now I got to jump in here because I'm old enough to remember when Gabby Gifford, a congresswoman, was shot in Tucson, Arizona. I had to endure a months-long political narrative that the reason some crazed maniac tried to put a bullet in, did successfully put a bullet in her brain, thank God she survived, was because of Sarah Palin, Glenn Beck, and Rush Limbaugh's political rhetoric. That's all we heard. In fact, there are still people who believe that. In fact, anytime there is any shooting in this country, people like Jake Tapper and his colleagues in the mainstream media bend over backwards to find some kind of motive that connects the person who has done some sort of horrible shooting somewhere to Republican politics and conservative politics. And when it doesn't materialize, they make it up anyway. And even better, when the politics of the killer, like the transgender maniac in Nashville, Tennessee, trying to kill as many people in a Christian school as she possibly could, when it does end up being left-wing ideology that motivates the killer, they don't say anything about it. So here's Jake Tapper saying, who's they? When you say they tried to assassinate, who's they? I'll tell you who's they. The guy who got arrested on the golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, at Trump's golf course. He was arrested because he was a huge consumer of left-wing political news, MSNBC. He used direct talking points from them. He posted MSNBC left-wing garbage all over his social media pages. He wanted to kill Donald Trump because he bought into left-wing political politics. That's who they is, Jake. That's who they are. Yeah, you heard me. But this virtue signaling, because Mike Johnson says they've been trying to arrest him. They've been raided his home. They've tried to throw him in jail. They tried to bring him off the ticket. They even tried to assassinate him. And I love that that's when Jake Tapper draws the line. Wait a minute. Who's they? Hey, Jake, what about all those other things they just said? You concede that they have been doing that, don't you? You concede that they've been trying to arrest their political opponent and throw him in jail, don't you? But this continues. And Johnson, again, Speaker Johnson is really, really good. And he keeps his cool, he keeps his composure, and he hits right back.
I mean, there's this conflation of any.
They're not, Jake. They're not. But no, but the political attacks have been relentless, and they have been baseless, and they made up the Russian collusion hoax, and they went after him and have been going after him ever since. They tried to impeach him twice. I mean, they've done real damage in the American psyche. What I'm talking about is the political attacks that are so over the top. Kamala Harris has used language saying he's so dangerous to the country. I mean, I've had colleagues in the House say he must be eliminated. He must be extinguished.
He's literally talking about
this stuff is over the top.
You know, against Democrats. I mean, he's literally talking.
No, he's not. No,
yes,
no, he's not, Jake. No, he's not. No, he's talking about using the National Guard and the military to keep the peace in our streets. In the summer of 2020, that my Democrat colleagues call the summer of love, it was crazy. It was mayhem, and Democratic progressive mayors and governors allowed it to go on, including Tim Walz, who allowed Minneapolis to burn, and it's still not rebuilt. Look, Trump is talking about restoring law and order, and I'm telling you, you can mock it. People in the media can mock it, but that resonates with the American people. They are sick of being afraid on the streets of their cities. Donald Trump can bring order back to the chaos.
All right. I did like, probably my favorite part here is the look on, look at Jake Tapper's face. Honestly, I have a special disdain for this man. But that does bring us to our next clip, probably the best part of this entire interview. Maybe we should have led with it. Mike Johnson having to endure Jake Tapper saying peanuts about 4 or 5 times in a 40-second window. I beeped that. Should I beep that, Kevin? Are we okay with me saying peanuts? Because I assume that people don't want to hear me say peanuts, but they're about to hear Jake Tapper say peanuts. I mean, what's worse, me saying peanuts or Jake Tapper saying peanuts? You decide. I say, I report on peanuts. You decide. That's the new slogan for this show. It's the Larry Show on Town Hall Media. I say peanuts over and over again. You decide. All right, here's Jake Tapper and his obsession.
Policy debate would be better than a personality debate, but if President Biden had gone on stage and spoke about the size of a pro golfer's penis, I think you would be on this show right now saying you were shocked and appalled, and you would suggest it was evidence of his cognitive decline. I wonder how Trump's remarks, not just the one about Arnold Palmer on his, quote, manhood, but everything we've heard from Trump this week, how it fits in with the analysis that the New York Times offered a few days ago. They looked at his speeches from 2015 and 2016 and looked at his speeches today and said, quote, with the passage of time, the 78-year-old former president's speeches have grown darker, harsher, longer, angrier, less focused, more profane, and increasingly fixated on the past.
Really quickly, if I could just jump in here, who here is absolutely shocked to learn that the New York Times has analyzed Trump's speeches and reached the conclusion that in some way he's he's darker and angrier and more upset. This is how the corporate legacy propaganda media's circle jerk happens. The New York Times writes this as if it's fact, as if this analysis from Peter Baker and Dylan Friedman is in some way valid and news and scientific fact. And then Jake Tapper uses it to pivot a question to Mike Johnson. It's like, isn't it? I mean, the New York Times has said this, Speaker Johnson. Don't you agree? That's not news. This is what I mean when I say this is propaganda media. They're all feeding upon each other and they're all utilizing it, but they're all acting serious with Jake Tapper's furrowed brow saying, well, I read this in the New York Times and it's just undeniably fact. And so, Speaker Johnson, you now have to answer to this and you need to respond that Donald Trump is so angry and mean. Meanwhile, you've got Kamala Harris screaming at a political rally about how Donald Trump must never be allowed to speak before the presidential seal on a podium again. Really, how are you going to accomplish that, Kamala Harris, considering you're second in command of the United States military right now? Are you threatening? I would call that a dark speech, wouldn't you? I would call that threatening, wouldn't you? And by the way, where was Peter Baker and Dylan Friedman from the New York Times talking about the cognitive decline of Joe Biden for, I don't know, the last 8 years, let alone the last 3.5 years? But no, this is how the propaganda works. But you know what I really miss? I really miss Jake Tapper saying penis, because I've only heard him say it once. So let's get to that, shall we?
I know you want to talk about policy, and I respect that, but the reason that Donald Trump is not up 10 points is because of comments like that one, where people do have concerns about his fitness, his acuity, and his stability. Why is he talking about Arnold Palmer's penis in front of Pennsylvania voters?
Jake, you seem to like that line a lot. Let me tell you that Donald Trump is doing rallies nonstop around the country.
Let me just say something. I don't want to be talking about this. Right. Donald Trump is out there saying it. It is.
But you continue to. Let's talk about.
Because you won't.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
You won't address it.
All right. So this is a he said situation here about Jake Tapper and his affinity for that word that I won't bother you again with another beep on. And Mike Johnson sort of poking fun at him about the fact that Jake Tapper keeps going back to saying that line. And here's Jake Tapper again. Jake Tapper with a furrowed brow. He furrows it well. And he says, I would prefer not to discuss this. I would prefer not to say it, but it's your candidate. It's Donald Trump, who's been just maligning poor Arnold Palmer, or praising Arnold Palmer, whichever the case may be, about the size of his club membership. So there's only one way to solve this. And by the way, no, it's not lost on me, the irony that the guy who has to speak about Arnold Palmer's situation is a guy named Mike Johnson, because it's just not fair, but it is what it is. What's your opinion of Arnold Palmer's Mike Johnson? Or shall we talk about Mike Johnson? All right, so here's the only way to solve this. I'm such a juvenile. I'm 12. I'm 12 years old. That's why you love me. The only way to solve this is to go to the videotape and see exactly what Donald Trump said. Because Jake Tapper is now claiming that Donald Trump spent all this time at a campaign event talking about Arnold Palmer's penis. And did he? Did he? Let's see.
Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it. We have women that are highly sophisticated here, but they used to look at Arnold and say, man, but he was really something special. Arnold was something special. So I just want to tell you, you're very lucky, the people that live in Detroit, and it's an honor for me to be here because of him. And he was actually he was a great man. And I don't think there would be golf to the extent that you have it today. It probably wouldn't be that way without the great Arnold Palmer. So enjoy it, everybody. Enjoy it.
Okay. So I just love that Jake Tapper is so humorless that he just can't appreciate that. So he brought it up because he was in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is the birthplace of Arnold Palmer. So he wanted to talk about Arnold Palmer. And he talked about what a great man he was and how he, made golf what it is today. And that's undeniably true. And he spent, what was it, 20 seconds? 20 seconds, he said guys would leave the showers and say, wow. But guess what he didn't say? He didn't say the word that Jake Tapper seems obsessed with. We've heard him say it 3 times now. And he didn't spend his entire speech talking about Arnold Palmer's situation. It was 15, 20 seconds of a story about it. Now, listen, you may prefer that Donald Trump stick with issues, but you know what? I'm sick of lamenting Donald Trump not being the candidate that I wish Donald Trump is. He is who he is. Can we deal with that? But here's Jake Tapper in an exclusive one-on-one interview with the Speaker of the House of the United States, and he's spending over 3 minutes talking about it. So who's really obsessed here? So now let's hand it over to Mike Johnson, which is just one of those names. And he's going to now set Jake Tapper straight. And again, you decide who's more obsessed, Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, me, or Jake Tapper.
He is out there talking to
No,
voters
I'll address it. Let me
ahead.
answer it. Okay, don't say it again. We don't have to say it. I get it. There's lines in a rally. When President Trump is at a rally, sometimes he'll speak for 2 straight hours. You're questioning his stamina, his mental acuity. Joe Biden couldn't do that for 5 minutes. That's how you started this segment. You said, what if Biden was in a rally like that? He couldn't fill the room. Donald Trump does. You know why? Because they see him as a change agent and they understand he has a record of performance. In his first administration, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, Jake, not just the U.S. Everybody's wages were going up. Everybody had more jobs available to them. The pathway out of poverty was widened for more people. And that's what the American people are looking at. We're going to have a demographic shift in this electorate, Jake. There's going to be, when they count the votes and they do the math on the other side of this, I'm convinced you're going to have a record number of Hispanic and Latino voters coming into the Republican Party, a record number of Black and African American voters, record number of Jewish voters and union workers and hardworking families, because they understand the Harris policies have destroyed their family finances. They have made them less safe in their cities. They have a wide open border with illegals and terrorists coming into our country. This is not working for the American people. And they want to change. And that's what they see in Donald Trump. So he has fun at the rallies. He says things that are off the cuff. But I'm telling you, I've been in those events. I've been in those arenas, and people have a great time at those arenas. So you can cherry pick a few words or lines out of a 2-hour event. We could do that with Kamala Harris after a 20-minute event, because she does word salads, and she couldn't hold court like that without a teleprompter. All
right. Good job by Mike Johnson. Let me listen. He spent a long time saying what I will say in an even shorter amount of time, which is, Jake, people thought it was funny. They like it. They find it humorous. It's a passing thing. You obviously don't find it funny. You don't think it's humorous. Guess what? If the people don't like it and they think it's wrong, they won't vote for him. That's all. It's that simple. But I don't need to defend it. I don't need to talk about it. He works if people don't like it, then he'll probably stop doing it. But as of now, people seem to enjoy it. But back to the larger question about how outrageous and unacceptable and just totally inappropriate and beyond the pale and worthy of Jake Tapper spending that much time on a Sunday show, furrowing his brow so well about how unacceptable it is for a president or former president to be talking about Arnold Palmer's situation. Could we just remind everybody what happened at the Democratic National Convention? Does anyone remember this Barack Obama moment? Oh, hang on.
The childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. The other day, I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day. Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous.
Yeah, Donald Trump's dangerous. Did you catch that moment, though? I mean, everyone in the crowd seemed to know exactly what he was doing there. And if you look at how the Telegraph described this moment, Barack Obama uses hand gesture to mock Trump's obsession with crowd sizes. What was that hand gesture Barack Obama used?
Conspiracy theories. This weird obsession with crowd sizes.
I think everybody in the room knows exactly what he was doing. He knows exactly what he was doing. He's smooth. But you saw him look down at, that, right?
With crowd sizes.
Jake, are we going to, have an issue with this? Jake Tapper? Furrowed brow? Are we going to have any sort of, no, we're done? Not an issue, not important. Listen, I'm not here to say that I want my politicians to spend more time talking about the size of the endowed or less endowed people in our pop culture or politics. I don't. I really, really don't. But I also don't think that it's something that Jake Tapper needs to spend his time on when it's only going in one direction. As soon as Jake Tapper does his special segment about Barack Obama talking about Trump's crowd size, then I'll believe we actually have a fair and impartial media. But until that day comes, well, let's just say I'm glad they are who they are and do what they do. And I'm glad you come here for mature and appropriate and sober political analysis. Penis. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. Say hi to Hillsdale College and Michigan for us. We're right here in Michigan, and it's a blast. And we're going to try to talk to some voters over the course of the next 2 weeks. Yeah, real voters right here in Michigan where the entire thing will be decided. So we'll do as much of that as we can. But in the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.